Let me sit with you for a moment, the way I would if we were at your kitchen table and you had just pushed a letter across the surface and whispered, "I don't know if this is real," because this world has changed around you faster than it should have. And people who do not know your name, your values, or your history have learned how to use fear as a doorway into your life. So before we go anywhere else, let me tell you something softly and clearly. You are not alone. And you are not wrong for feeling unsettled when the phone rings, or when an envelope arrives with words designed to rattle your nerves. You deserve peace. You deserve the truth. Let's begin there. A few months ago, I sat with a man named Walter. He was 78, a former school bus driver who still ironed his shirts every Sunday. He told me he had received a call that claimed to be from the tax authority. The voice on the line spoke sharply, as if reading from a script, telling him he owed several $1,000s and that if he did not pay that same afternoon, an officer would come to his home. Walter said he felt something inside him collapse. He had never missed a tax payment in his life. He had never been in trouble. But the call caught him at the end of a long day. And fear has a way of sounding like urgency when you are tired. He said, "I thought maybe I had forgotten something. Maybe I had made a mistake." And that right there is where so many seniors are hurt. Not by lack of intelligence, not by carelessness, but by honesty, by integrity, by the belief that if someone sounds official, they must be telling the truth. Let me tell you the truth. Fake tax authority scams are crafted to feel real because scammers know the emotional pressure those three letters carry. They use language that mimics government forms. They mention case numbers. They use caller ID tricks that make it look like the call is coming from a federal building. Sometimes the voice sounds stern, sometimes it sounds sympathetic. But the intention is always the same: to shake you, to hurry you, to make you feel as if you have committed some invisible wrong. This is where fear meets the law. Real tax agencies do not call you out of the blue demanding immediate payment. They do not insist on wire transfers or prepaid cards. They do not threaten to send agents to your home within hours. They communicate by mail, and even then they explain they do not intimidate. They give you time to ask questions. They give you space to understand. And they will never, under any circumstance, pressure you with the threat of arrest for unpaid taxes. That threat is a signature of scammers, not public servants. I remember the moment Walter looked up at me after I explained this. His shoulders loosened. His breath deepened. He said, "So it wasn't my mistake." And I said, "No. The system failed you by not preparing you for how cruel people can be. Let that sink in for you too. You did not fail. You were targeted because you have lived long enough to carry trust, decency, and responsibility in your bones. Scammers see those qualities as weaknesses. I see them as proof of your dignity." A few weeks after meeting Walter, I met a woman named Lorraine, 76 years old. She still baked bread on Thursdays the way her mother taught her. She received a letter marked "Immediate Action Required," stamped in red ink, stating she owed back taxes. The letter included her correct address. It included an amount that looked oddly specific, but everything about it was designed to spark panic. She said she felt her heart race just reading the first few lines. She said, "It looked real. And I thought if I ignored it, they'd show up at my door." That fear of someone arriving unannounced is so common among seniors that scammers count on it. They count on you imagining the worst. They count on you believing the envelope must be legitimate simply because it feels heavy with importance. Let me tell you the truth. Threatening letters are often written to create urgency, not clarity. They impersonate government seals. They include fake deadlines. They may even reference your file, as if they have been monitoring you for months. But if you look closely, there is always something slightly off. A wrong date, a missing agency name, a suspicious return address, a tone that feels more like a bully than a government office. And here's what they do not explain. Real agencies do not send threatening letters demanding money without offering explanations, appeals, or time to respond. Real agencies do not give you only days to avoid consequences.
This clause here limits our
They follow
exposure.
procedures
I see.
rooted
What are
in
the
fairness.
implications?
Lorraine told me she almost mailed the money simply to make the fear stop. That is how deeply these letters strike. They do not just ask for payment. They attack your sense of security. But you are allowed to pause. You are allowed to question. You are allowed to hold the letter up to the light and ask, does this add up? You are not wrong for doing so. You are protecting yourself in a world that often fails to protect you. Then there was Harold, 81 years old, walked with a slow, steady determination. He received a voicemail saying there was a warrant for his arrest. The caller claimed to be from a federal agency. The message was cold, robotic. It said he needed to call back before further action is taken. Harold told me he sat in his armchair for nearly an hour, staring at the wall, wondering what he had done wrong. He said, "I am too old to be caught up in legal trouble." That sentence broke my heart, because he believed the threat before he believed in his own innocence. Let me tell you what they don't explain. Real government agencies do not issue arrest threats by phone. They do not leave recorded messages warning you of warrants. They do not demand payment to resolve a legal issue, and they do not behave like debt collectors. Arrest threats are tools used by scammers for one purpose: to scare seniors into silence and compliance. Because when you are frightened, you move quickly. And quick decisions are exactly what scammers depend on. The law was built to protect you, even when no one tells you that. You have the right to time, you have the right to clarity, you have the right to hang up the phone, and you have the right to verify any claim made against you. Real agencies understand that fear does not foster justice. They do not rely on it. Scammers rely on nothing else. You deserve to hear this part clearly. You are not gullible for believing a voice that sounded official. You are not naive for thinking a letter with a seal must be legitimate. You are not weak for wanting to avoid trouble. You have lived through decades where authority meant something, where officials behaved with respect, where threats were not common communication tools. Scammers exploit that trust. But trust is not a flaw. It is a sign of who you are, and who you are is someone worth protecting. Now let me give you something steady to hold on to. Let me tell you what real government agencies will never do. They will never demand payment over the phone. They will never ask you to buy gift cards. They will never request wire transfers or prepaid cards. They will never threaten to send police officers to your home. They will never rush you. They will never refuse to provide written documentation, and they will never punish you for asking questions. If someone claims to represent the government and does any of these things, they are not who they say they are, and you are allowed to hang up. You are allowed to tear the letter without fear. You are allowed to protect your own peace. I know these scams leave emotional bruises. They make you question your memory, your judgment, your independence. But emotionally reframing this is important. You are not tricked because you are vulnerable. You are targeted because you are valuable. Scammers go after seniors because you answer the phone with kindness, because you read your mail carefully, because you try to do the right thing. There is honor in that. Never allow a criminal to turn that honor into shame. When I tell seniors how to respond to these scams, I always begin with the same reassurance. You still have control, you have more power than you think, and most importantly, you have options. If you receive a suspicious call, let it go to voicemail. If you get a letter, read it slowly, not fearfully. If someone threatens arrest, take a breath before you take an action. And when in doubt, here is where your strength meets the law. You can report the scam. You can protect not only yourself, but someone else who may be holding a letter right now, wondering if they should reach for their checkbook. Report fake tax authority scams to the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration. Report threatening calls to the Federal Trade Commission. Report impersonation scams to your state Consumer Protection Office. And if you feel unsure where to begin, tell someone you trust. Often one conversation ends the fear before it takes root. You can do this. I have watched seniors regain their confidence after months of doubt. I have watched them learn to recognize manipulation from the first sentence. I have watched them move from fear to calm with just a few simple truths. You are allowed to ask for help. You are allowed to question anything that unsettles you. You are allowed to protect your peace with the same strength you used to protect your family for decades. So let me close with this. If any part of this felt familiar, if you saw yourself in Walter or Lorraine or Harold, if you have ever felt that tightness in your chest when the phone rang with an unfamiliar number, stay with me for one more moment. This part matters more than you think. You are not the problem. The confusion is not your doing. The pressure was not earned. The fear was not a sign of weakness. The wrongdoing belongs entirely to the scammers. Your role now is simply to reclaim what is already yours: your dignity, your security, your calm. And if this helped you in any way, share it with someone you love. Someone who might be sitting in their living room right now, staring at a letter that never deserved their fear. Tell your story. Someone else may need to hear it.